All right, so this is the first episode for the Amanda Show. I have put off doing a podcast for a long time, but we're here. We have a very special guest today and an extra special guest who I was not anticipating, Evil Ernie, who's gonna be part of this podcast and answer some questions. But number one, we have our very first guest, Mr. Dan O'Neill, my team leader, founder of the number one team on Long Island, the O'Neill team. With 300 plus transactions this year, Dan is a philanthropist, a social media king and connoisseur who has changed the landscape of the real estate industry, I would say. You are a contributor for Broke Agent Media. You are also a sufferer of eczema and the number one sponsor for Camus. So thank you.
That was really good. I'm very impressed with that intro.
Yeah.
Thank you for writing that. That means a lot.
A little research goes a long way.
That was really nice.
How are you today?
I think that was the nicest you've ever been to me, actually.
That's a total lie.
No, that is absolutely not. That is the nicest. That was the nicest you've ever been to me.
Really?
I swear to God.
Well, I apologize then.
Well, I appreciate it.
So I wanted to bring you on today, number one, because you kind of introed me and were a little bit of my mentor a couple of years ago already. So I thought, what better way than to do this and get you back on this podcast. Number one, I think a lot of people have been watching you the last couple of years in real estate. Some love you, some love to hate you. So I figured let's get into the nitty gritty. Let's see how you got started and let's answer all of the questions that people want to know. So
let's do it. And we have Evil Ernie here.
We have Evil Ernie, who is Dan's son, and he wanted to be here with his father today. So let's start. We'll go back to the very beginning. You are a graduate of Coastal Carolina. You graduated with a business degree, correct?
Communications, we'll say.
Communications. So
yeah, with a minor in Spanish, something like that.
How did we transfer from college life to real estate? Like, how did you get into real estate? Was it something you always wanted to do? No,
and I feel like that's such a cheesy answer. Like, I hate when people say, like, I always had a passion for real estate and interior design, and I always saw myself being a real estate agent. Like, that's not true. Yeah. For me, I got into the restaurant business. I didn't know what I wanted to do as a career. So I was bartending. I went from bartending to being the manager, from the manager to the GM. So I was 22 years old, and I was working 100 hours a week. I was managing a restaurant that I had no business managing. And I just figured if I was putting in the time and the effort and the energy that I was into the restaurant, into my own business, I would have a lot of success. So I was really burnt out. I was tired. I was drinking a lot. Like, I was really depressed. I wasn't happy with myself, and I felt like I was not reaching my potential. Like, how could I help other people? How could I help my family, my parents? If I was just working in the restaurant business forever. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It just
you just felt like it wasn't your full potential.
And like looking back on it, I wasn't myself. Like, I was just in a really bad spot, and I would do anything to get out of it. So. I had Cameron Cashanova. He reached out and said that his office at Weichert were having like an open house for new agents.
Okay.
Yeah, back in the day.
Okay.
And so I was like, oh, well, I guess they're hiring. So I just took the first opportunity and got really lucky.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So then once you got started, I feel like a lot of people want to know, because they see you now as this success and you kind of just have this well-oiled machine, but what was it like in your first 6 months to a year? What did you have to do, and what did you do to establish yourself as a brand new agent?
I mean,
what were the challenges too? Tell everybody.
I mean, this could be like a 4-hour-long podcast. Yeah. First 6 months, I almost quit 100 times. First year, really, I almost quit 100 times. And what I really started doing was bringing my dad around as like a for sale by owner and pretending that he was like the buyer.
Okay.
So that was generating a lot of listing appointments for me, which then turned into listings. I mean, at one point in time, so I was with Weichert, and I realized it was too far of a drive. I was commuting to Farmingdale every day.
Right.
So I'd ask them for like a satellite office. So they granted me one, and they put me right next to a firehouse. So like every half hour, just the fire alarm goes off, So I'd be sitting there like making calls, and like the alarm would be going off. So then I switched again, joined a team, and my first year...
It was up and down.
Yeah, it was insane. And then I finally got to a point where I was like, all right, listen, you know what? I think it was Memorial Day of my first year. If I don't have a closing, like in the next 3 weeks, I have to...
So at that point, how long were you doing it before you kind of picked up speed?
I didn't get paid for 7 months. But the crazy part is I had like 7 listings within my first 4 months. But
and that was through bringing your father to FSBOs.
Bringing my father to FSBOs worked. I probably had about 5 to 7 listings, but they all started having issues. So the buyers couldn't close, deals were dying, like, because I didn't know what I was doing. So I was getting the listings, I was selling them, quote unquote, and then they were just dying on me. So I'm like, I counted my money ahead of time. So I quit the part-time job that I had. I'm like, hey, I got 7 closings coming in, let's say 70,000 GCI.
Yeah.
And then 5 of them died. And I was sitting in Miami like, well, I have $500 to my name. I don't know how I'm going to get home from Miami. I definitely can't go out tonight, and I'm done. Fortunately, that's how I met Andrew Russell. He wound up saving one of those deals for me. It was like a $10,000 commission, and that kind of got me through at least the next 3 or 4 months and kept me in the business.
So I guess what people want to know, I mean, you share this with us as your team, but so you basically just went to these houses as FSBOs, you brought your father, and then you somehow wangled your way into their life and got them to list with you.
Correct. I don't know if I can get in trouble for that or not, but yeah, so I mean, it's true, right?
Right.
My dad was, at the time, flipping houses, so it wasn't like a major lie. Was he looking at those homes to potentially buy to live in? Probably not.
Okay, but you had an in there anyway because he was in that realm.
Right, so he's in the realm, and funny story, and this is to this day, my biggest referral partner. So what I would do is, my dad has a landscape truck, and it says O'Neill and Wellashar on the truck, and so I would have him park miles down, I would pick him up, and we would go together. One day, he's running late, so he pulls up in front of the house, which I didn't know, and I'm already there talking to the client or the person, and the seller looks out the window, and like he kind of saw already, because like, you know how my dad is, right?
Yeah.
So I'm shooting my dad looks like left and right, like
out
stop.
Of his mind.
He's out of his mind. So I'm like, stop talking, stop doing this. The guy's in like the shower, running a shower head. So the person starts like kind of noticing. He looks out the window, sees O'Neill and Wellashar, realizes, like, puts 2 and 2 together, like with the
like,
same
hey,
name.
this is what he's kind of doing.
Yeah.
But I think he would have to think it's kind of ingenious at the end of the day.
So he caught me red-handed, but what happened was he respected the hustle, I guess, and like what I was trying to do so much. He gave me the listing, and I sold it for him in like a month. He was a detective with Suffolk County Police Department, and he gave me, I'd probably say to this day, 65 referrals.
Wow.
And he gave me, in my first year thereafter, like almost 20.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, we know a little bit more of the backstory, so that's amazing, but I know that there's also other parts, like you're infamous going to sit at Insignia, you networked. I don't want people to think it just kind of came to you, because you did.
No.
You did go out and network. You did put yourself in uncomfortable positions, and it wasn't always easy. So talk a little bit about the struggles that you faced coming into the scene, where predominantly, I mean, now it's a lot of younger people, but then it really wasn't. It's older agents. Like, how did they look at you, and what were your challenges?
When I tell you that I disappeared for like 3 years, 2.5 years, I mean, from my friends, from my family, like I didn't go out, I didn't date, I didn't drink, I didn't do anything. Every hour of every day, every weekend was like open houses. I was just always doing something, because number one, I didn't have any money, so I couldn't do any of those things. And number two, I didn't want to fail and let everybody down, because I'd made this whole big thing, like I'm getting into real estate.
Yeah, so you wanted to live up to what you said you were going to do.
And I wanted to make my parents proud, because as I mentioned, like I was in a really dark place.
Yeah.
And I know that I didn't make them proud, and I got in some trouble and whatever. So like I would go to Insignia, and I didn't have any money, so I would go there, and the bartender, Nikki, who still works there, I would order a club soda with a lime and put in like a rocks glass, and they had like a little secret menu of like lamb chops. It was like $18 or something like that. So I would get that, and I knew the players in real estate through Facebook, right?
Yep.
So like Mike Murphy is somebody that I met there, Chris Chiarenzia, a ton of people. I would literally just be sitting at the bar, and I would hear real estate or sell, whatever, give out my card.
Walk over.
Mike Murphy they were like singing happy birthday to his son. He'll tell the story. And I went up and I introduced myself, and I'm like, hey, in a couple of years, you're gonna know who I am. So those are things I was doing. I was doing 3 open houses every Saturday, Sunday. So 11 to 12:30, 12.
Yeah, I feel like people sleep on open houses. This is why I just did a video with David last week. That's one thing that if you're uncomfortable doing those things, going up to people or social media, whatever the case, open houses are such an easy way to get leads, meet people, and put yourself out there and just learn about the business. I feel like
they should be that's honestly, in my opinion, like that should be that's the number one, source of leads, because people are coming there, raising their hand, saying, hey, we want to buy, we want to sell, we're looking in this area. Like those are ready to go people. The last couple of years have been tough because of the post-COVID open houses.
Yeah, and you can't really do much.
You couldn't do much with 60 people coming in and out. You're almost kind of, it's like an Outback Steakhouse. But when there's 3 or 4 people, 6 people, you could build rapport with every single one of those.
Right.
Every one of them. So what I would do is every single weekend, Saturday, Sunday, 3 open houses.
Do the open houses,
and
meet
I would
people.
And I would have my dad sit sit outside the open house until one day finally I'm
This
like,
man takes one for the team, but knows what he's doing.
yes. The last time I like when I knew I had to like pivot and start doing the right way. So I left one open house in Port Jeff Station, and I had a condo, one of my first listings, and I mean that was my first ever listing. I got it at 6.
I was going to say, what was your first, like your very first transaction, the chance that someone gave you?
Okay, so to finish that story, I went to that open house. My dad was sleeping in his car, so he was fired. First ever listing I get, and I go on it for sale by owner. I get it at 6%, like 6%.
Insane. That's
Don't
insane.
really know if we could talk about commissions, but
That
whatever.
is insane. I mean, unheard of to people not in real estate. Like that doesn't.
But
doesn't happen for your first time.
what winds up happening is I had to I paid my little brother, his friends, like 3 of his friends, myself, my dad. I rented a U-Haul, and I had to clean their house out of all the stuff. And I had to rent a storage unit in Mount Sinai and bring all the stuff there.
You worked hard for it.
I was there for 3 days.
Wow.
On top of that, it then took 9 months to sell. 9 months to sell. I did an open house there every Saturday, Sunday by myself. Cameron Castronova did it with me. Nobody ever came. And the family, and I can talk about it now because I know they'll never see this.
Right.
The open house was every weekend, Saturday, Sunday, from 12 to 1:30, right? They would be there. There was 15 people living in this 2-bedroom condo. They would be there until 1:15.
No.
So they would be there the entire time.
Just sitting on the couch.
No.
watching.
They'd be like getting ready to leave. And then they wouldn't leave until literally like 10 minutes before the end of the open house. I did it every Saturday and
Did
Sunday.
people ask like, "What's going on here?" Because sometimes
Nobody was showing up.
No
Nobody
one was
came.
showing up.
But I had nothing. Like I had nothing else to do. It was my
just
only
stayed.
listing. So,
Insane.
And it finally sold 9 months later. But I swear to God, I did an open house there every Saturday, Sunday, for 9 months.
And I feel like having probably your first one be the hardest one kind of sets you up, and then everything else after that is just not that it's easy, but when you come into the game having to work that hard, you're like, okay, you know what to expect because every deal is different, and some of the deals are just like nightmares compared to others.
Well, and that made me want to quit. You got to think too. Like that's my first deal. I'm
You're like,
moving
I
these
need to
people
get
of-
out.
Yeah, like it was and people don't understand that, and I do a poor job of it now. Like I don't showcase that as much as I should, and I wish I documented more of it. Like on my time hop, actually, can we pause this so I can show this? On my time hop yesterday, this could be actually pretty funny to show. I wonder if it's still here. Is the video of that house closing, and my excitement for
Insane.
it. Let's go! Oh my God. God, thank you. I will be at church every Sunday morning, 9 o'clock. And I had no money too, you gotta think. So I'm sitting there dead broke, like fucking praying to God that these go through. Because if they didn't, I would have been out.
Oh God.
Then I had another situation where Andrew Russell, the buyer, forged their like information, so they actually didn't have like, they weren't like a real person, right? So they used like a different identity. That was like my third deal.
So now we are going to flip gears. We talked a little bit about how you got into the business. I want to know, how long did it take to build, I said a well-oiled machine. I mean, how long until you were confident in your business, and what was the aha moment where you were like, you know what, I think I want to start a team? What was that like? How did it start? And what were your challenges there?
I mean, number one, I wouldn't even call it necessarily a well-oiled machine, as you know.
Because you're still learning.
Still learning.
Yeah.
Gonna learn every day until the day that, I die.
You get out of this?
The second part is, when did I know to start a team, or when was the aha moment? There really wasn't, but what started to happen was I was bringing on a lot of people to the team that I was on at the time, and I was doing, again, open house, 3 open houses every Saturday, Sunday. Like I was driving myself nuts.
Crazy.
At the same time, Justin had reached out to me. He emailed me about like being my assistant, and I'm like, I don't need an assistant, but let me meet this kid. He typed out a really nice email. Like,
wow.
It was really cool. So I met with him, and it was kind of at that point, I'm like, well, we're already recruiting people. John Cariello was getting his license, Jake Bureau. So I was kind of just like, well, why don't we just give it a shot? And I'd only had my license for a year, so the amount of people that told me not to do it, you're a fool, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're doing. A lot of negative
Discouragement
people.
and
yes.
Yeah.
And I was just, again, same situation, like from the very beginning. The only way that you're going to fail is if you let yourself fail.
Try.
And I'm never going to let myself fail. So gave it a shot. It worked out. We won Bethpage Best Team Long Island last year, and
Yeah, I guess.
I'm not going to say anything about this year, but we'll see.
Yeah, I would say like, because the thing is, like, you have to be pretty secure in your own business, because when you take other people on, number one, now you're responsible for their livelihoods. So did you worry about that a little bit? Like, okay, am I stable enough to give myself to other people? Because you started with how many people? I mean, it was Justin. He was your like
Justin,
OG.
John, then like Jake and Alyssa, and then Bree, and then it really like, then you, and then it really kind of like took off, and then we did Florida. So it went from like 4 to like 10 to 15 to 30.
Right. So compared to then, like,
Yeah.
and now, like, what has changed? What are some of the things you look back on and you're like, oh my God, I would do that differently? Or what worked? Like, kind of the process, I would say, of growing to how many agents do we have now on our team?
Well, we are cutting back.
Yeah, okay,
Let's
yeah.
just call it 25.
Yeah, we'll say 25.
There were a lot of challenges, a lot of mistakes, and the toughest part about, and what people don't understand about having a team is, like, you're responsible for everybody. So if you're not having a good month, or if you're not having a good year, if you're not having a good week, like, that affects me. Like, I can't sleep because I feel like I owe you, right? Like, I'm responsible for your success. Sometimes there are cases where I want people to succeed more than they want to, or like that they'll be willing to put the work in. And at that point, now I've learned to kind of not take it as personal and not get so much anxiety or be upset about it, because there's only so much I can control. But it's the most rewarding feeling seeing, like, I think we're the only team that's had 2 to 3 people that have won top 20 under 40.
Yeah.
So that's, an incredible experience.
Yeah.
To have John have his life changed, Justin, even Bree.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing. You expanded to a completely different market, a completely different state. And John is, I mean, we talk to John every day. I talk to John every day. He's absolutely crushing it. He went from New York, born and raised, Long Island, little frat boy, to going down south. And he literally has earned his own business and his own place in a state and a market where he doesn't know anything. So
And
I would say that's a testament to you too, because I'm looking at it from the other side. Like, I get panicked and I'm nervous with my own schedule, with my own business, but Dan has to control 25 people's livelihoods, schedules, therapy sessions. So it's not just like, he's taking all this money and running. Like, it's a lot of work, and he gives us a lot too. So I just wanted to see kind of the process of how you got here.
Well, and it's investing back into the business too, right? Like, the money that comes in through the team. And I think what in the beginning I made the mistake of is I was very much in production myself.
Yeah.
So I wasn't as much of a leader as I should have been, as much of like a CEO.
You had to wear both hats.
I was more of like, just a salesperson, and kind of didn't really help as much as I could have. And the good thing is, though, is while I wasn't the leader I was, we still had Justin, Bree, Vic. We still had a lot of people that were able to change their lives and their families' lives at the same time. Yeah. So now I feel like in the last year, I've really matured as like a business person, and also as a salesperson too.
Yeah.
But now I feel more confident that in looking back on it, I could say, did I give everybody the right resources and the tools? Was I there? Was I communicative, right? Because sometimes I can turtle up a little bit and I don't want to communicate, right? Like that's...
Well, it's hard. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you're like a boss and a business owner, so it's not, you do HR, you do all of the things, so it's not easy. But I will say, like, in this business, as a single agent, you either have it or you don't. So sometimes you could spoon feed people and they're still not going to get it at the end of the day. So, it's having to make those tough decisions of who's really going to succeed long term and who's not.
Well, I mean, and you've seen it from both sides, because you've been an individual agent with a good company, and you've been on the team, and like you could very, very easily be out and doing your own thing, but you choose to be on the team, and I hope and I feel that it's because you see the vision, the culture, and
the value in it,
and the value and what we're trying to do, and really like changing the industry like for the better. And like everybody's going to be different, right? Some people, individual makes sense. For some people,
it's personal preference. It's what you get. But I'm glad that you mentioned social media and changing the landscape, because I'm going to shift into something that I feel like everybody knows you for. You are like a household name for this in the Long Island real estate space. So let's transfer it into social media.
Okay.
Were you always an avid social media user prior to getting into real estate? How did you get here? And did you think it would elevate to this level? You are in the Tom Ferry network. You are like personal friends with Tom Ferry. You went to the Broke Agents bachelor party, for God's sakes. You interviewed Ryan Serhant. I think you have Dave Portnoy following you. Like, how did we get to this place?
I don't know. I really don't. I think it really just started in the beginning of trying to be different, and I always thought to myself, okay, well, if I'm going on a listing appointment and I'm going up against Brian Karp, who has 400 sales a year and his bald, beautiful head is everywhere, how am I going to get that listing? So we came up with the idea for video as a way to differentiate ourselves, get more eyeballs on the property, and it worked. And then we started doing kind of like funnier and more outlandish videos. At the same time, like Matt Leonetti, Eric, the broke agent, we're starting to do more comedy. So it was really like myself, Matt, Eric, really kind of started adapting it, and then it just kind of took off from there. And it was working. It was selling the property. It was, getting more eyeballs, getting more buyers, and then just increasing the follower count too. So now when I go on a listing appointment, even you too, we're able to say, hey, there's 300,000 views a week on this page. That's 300,000 people that are looking at your listing.
And I don't have the following yet that you do. I hope one day I do, but prior, I know I could say for myself before I got into real estate, I would maybe post once a year. So like, what was the transfer? Like, were you always a social media user, or were you just like, it was like college weekends and fun stuff and ways to like meet girls, and then it just transferred into you, like, okay, I could use this and use my personality? Like, were you always a camera lover?
It was the first part. It was weekends, college,
girls and other things we won't mention.
Yes,
on
that
camera.
they're all archived now. But at the time, it wasn't social
that.
media.
So you just got into this business and you're like, you know what? I'm going to use this and my personality to leverage what I have here. And because I don't really think, at that time I wasn't in real estate, but I don't think anyone was doing social media videos or anything.
Yeah. So it was really us three that like kind of like started the like the humor side of it, but I never would have imagined that it would have taken me to,
Blown
like
up
you
to
said,
this.
And again, it was also something that everybody hated on. Everybody said that.
Well, they still do.
And they still do. And I totally get it because, there was a point in time over the last couple of years where like TikTok dances were normal and it got weird, which I get, right?
Yeah.
And people don't understand that it's not just social media. It's social media and doing all the things, the activities that you need to be doing, like cold calling, door knocking, open houses, circle dialing, all of those things. So it's not just social media. It's
a whole ball of wax. And I think a lot of older agents, I will say agents in general, they think that, your knowledge is kind of like clouded when you're out on video, but people wouldn't know who you are if you weren't riding on horses, if you weren't jumping in pools and swimming in lakes, whatever the hell else. They wouldn't even really pay that close attention. So.
And the best part now too also is I don't even have to sell myself on these listings. So when I'm going there, I don't even need to like bring listing paperwork. I don't have to bring our packet. People already feel like they know me. So it's done without social media and Instagram. I think I would still be managing that restaurant.
Yeah, and I will speak to all the social media haters or the people that talk, about us, Dan, whoever. When I met Dan and I got into this business, and Charles, I did not want to pick up my phone and talk on it. I thought it was ridiculous, disgusting, embarrassing. Flash forward now, I tell people when I'm eating breakfast what I'm doing now, what I'm doing here. So it really just becomes a habit. And I would say over the last couple months, I've picked up maybe 1 to 2 or 3 deals a month just from, or a contact, just from posting on Instagram.
Well, and now you're a BAM creator too. You're working with Eric, broke agent. You were able to meet all of them. You're connected in the Tom Ferry ecosystem. Yeah. People know who you are. Like,
it's amazing.
You're becoming a household name.
Yeah.
So social media really, and like I remember when we did the first podcast with Charles, like the new agent.
I almost had a panic attack.
Yeah, you hated it. Like
panic attack.
You didn't want to be on it, but I feel the same way. Like I have eczema. I was a little chubby boy for quite some time. Like I had a quadruple chin going on. Everybody has their own self, their own
There's a million
insecurities.
reasons why you don't want to do it, and I give credit to those people and, agents that we see in our own company that are trying to, get out of that mindset. And whether it's on your phone or whatever the case, like if you're trying, I give you all the credit.
I agree. And that's like with anything too, like people can come up with the excuses why they don't want to door knock or why they don't want to cold call.
It's uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable, right? But these are all excuses, and it's the same thing with social media, and that's why I'll never hate on anybody that is putting in the effort and the time, because they're truly trying to make a difference. They're trying to build their business or their brand to help their family, their kids, whatever. So that's why I hate when people are haters.
Yeah, I agree. Let's play devil's advocate. What are the things that maybe you don't like about being so public on social media? What are the things maybe you don't like about being a realtor?
Well, I wouldn't say there's anything that I don't. Okay, one thing I don't like about being in this business is that because there are so many people, there's so many agents who don't do the right thing. There is the perception that all agents are the same.
Right.
That's tough.
Right.
I don't like the fact that some
You're painted
people
with one brush.
yeah,
Basically.
and I understand it too because, for example, I just bought a new car and I had a horrible
It's gorgeous.
experience. Thank you. I had a horrible experience at the prior dealership. So then it was kind of like I don't even want to buy a car anymore. All these salesmen are probably the same.
Yeah.
So I understand the perception, right? But so that's the one thing that I would say I don't like about the business.
Yeah, I could agree with that. Yeah.
And trying to change that. And then what was the first question?
And is there anything you don't like about your life being
my
so
gosh.
public? And in the essence, like even though I don't have as big a following as Dan, I can tell like if I don't post for a little bit or if I'm having an off week, people are like, oh, like where's this or where's that or I didn't see you do this morning, and it's kind of like it's great to like have people watching you, but at the same time you're like, okay, like do I have to post today? Like maybe you're just off your game a little bit. Like is there any downside to it?
I don't think I've ever admitted this, but I've actually begun to hate it.
Yeah.
I've actually really, truly begun to hate it. It's great because I love being able to go to my deli, and have everyone say, oh, there's the real estate guy.
Yeah.
Or, I'm very fortunate and blessed to have that. But at the same time, there are, like right now, I don't want to post. There are days that I wake up that I don't want to be happy and on social media. I go through ruts, relationship stuff.
Yeah.
You're
just like human.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like and there's certain things. I'm very proud of the car that I bought, right? And people don't understand that I took care of my parents and I've helped them out, and that's not something that I share. So when they see my car, they interpret it a certain way. So instead of me being proud of my car or
you're like, oh no, should I not post it? Should I not?
Yeah, and I feel like it shouldn't be that way. So I'm trying to work on being more just like authentic, for better or for worse. Like even like the vape, right? Like you'll see me in videos, I have my vape out. And that's really it, but it's tough. People don't realize like
and
I couldn't even
Instagram's
imagine.
a highlight reel. Yeah, Instagram's a highlight reel, and people need to realize that at the end of the day, like there's just normal people behind the screens and behind the post. I think the realer you are, people can connect with you, but it's hard because you have to worry like, oh, if I got myself this gift after I busted my ass with these deals, are people going to be like, oh, like, are they kidding? Like, what is that?
And I waited 3 years for that. I made sure that my dad has a new, like,
Yep.
I don't have to get into it. But, so it's unfortunate that it's that way. But that's kind of also how, like, life is. A lot of times people will root for you until you get to a certain point. And then they don't want to root for, then they stop rooting for you, which is sad because I haven't changed. I'm still I'm still humble. I'm still the same person.
It's important.
I couldn't imagine being like, being like Justin Bieber. Like poor guy goes on like a date and he's just, like I'm just at like CVS, God forbid. But imagine like being Justin Bieber, like you walk out of here, you're just going to dinner like on a date and there's people pictures and shit. It's crazy.
Pictures of your shoes, pictures of your face, your girlfriend, everything.
Thank God, I will never, knock on wood, I never want to be anything like that.
Yeah, no.
And it's funny though because people say, they're like, oh, you want to get into acting, you want to do this. I'm like, no, I don't.
No, you just want to have fun.
Yeah.
You want to take care of yourself, your family,
Right.
and enjoy your job. And I think that's what we're all after.
Yes.
So with that being said, if somebody's looking to get into real estate, a new realtor, what would you don't have to go crazy, you can make it short. What would you suggest they do? And what if they're anti-social media? What would you tell them?
You don't have to be on social media, I would
Right.
say. I don't think you'll do as well if you're not. But first thing I would say, if you're a new agent, is to join a team or a brokerage that you'll have a mentor and somebody that can help you provide leads, provide video and social media, keep you accountable. I really think that you have to be on a team and you got to get on video. If you don't want to get on video, unless you have a book of business, unless you're coming from another sales position, how are people going to get to know you, right? How are you going to build that brand? And it's funny because you and I know people, and we're not going to name names, but like who have adapted social media and who are on it now because they see
that it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, listen, single agent team is total preference, but if you're going to go for a team, make sure you are getting a lot and you seek value there. I'm a social media lover, so I feel like I would say if a team is offering you that,
Didn't you hate social media in the beginning?
I hated being on it because I felt very weird with my 800 followers going on and saying, hey, this is what I'm doing today. Like, I didn't want people from high school seeing or thinking,
Yeah.
like, what is she doing? She's got no followers. Who is she talking to? Who does she think she is? But I think once I got over that hump and I realized, oh my God, like we went to Tom Ferry in Texas this past August, and I had a woman run up to me across the convention center of 7,000 people, and she was like, oh my God, I follow all your stuff. She was from like California,
that happened
Oregon.
a couple times.
Yeah, and I'm like, what? Like I'm this little thing from Long Island, and I just talk about real estate, and I dance occasionally and point to things and dress up as weird characters.
And you've only been doing the social media now, what, for a year and a half?
Yeah, like a year and a half, 2 years maybe.
So imagine, like next summit, now imagine what's going to happen.
Yeah, let's see. I hope so.
You're going to be on stage.
So we're just going to say, what was your peak in your pit of 2022, meaning best point, lowest point, and then you can kind of wrap up and just say what your goals are for the team over the next couple of years.
Okay.
And where people can find you.
The lowest point for me was, unfortunately, we had the first turnover ever on the team.
Yeah.
So I tried to bring somebody up to be a leadership position while still producing. It's not a position of something that you can do both in. I don't think managers should really be able to sell at the same time, if that makes sense. So because of that, lost somebody that I really care about and deeply, and lost the second person, everyone's going to know what we're talking about. So I think that was probably the worst for me, the most upsetting, the most, that I took most personal.
Yeah.
The best for me was and I'm going to tie this in 3 ways, was number 1, winning the Bethpage Best Team on Long Island, because we didn't even vote for ourselves, so that was incredible. Second thing was all the philanthropy that we were able to do. And the third for me was being able to help my parents in different ways.
That's probably the best part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those I would say would be the 3 best, and losing, the 2 people that we care about.
Makes sense. It's awesome though. And then as we wrap up, I want you to tell people what your goals are for yourself, for the team in the next 1 to 3 years. Like, where do you see this whole thing growing and going?
So right now, I'm fortunate enough to be YPN president. So I'm looking forward to getting more involved and climbing the ladder with LIBOR and One Key, and hopefully making a difference through NISAR, NAR, all of those positions. The goals for the team: want to be number 1 in Florida on the West Coast pretty soon. I would say in the next year to 2 years.
Okay.
And I want to continue to motivate, inspire, give back, and have us continue to be the number 1 team on Long Island.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And then where can people find you if they want to look at your videos?
Nowhere.
Nowhere.
I don't want no more. I don't want anyone.
They have to send a carrier pigeon.
Yeah, send a raven. Well, what about you? What about you? What's your goal for this year?
What is my goal for this year?
I already know it because I saw your business plan, but let's put it out there for public accountability.
My goal for this year, I think I want to get to a point where I am sustainable in myself, but like you, I think everyone, I hope, if you're not selfish, I want to help my family. I want to, pay off all my loans and all things and just be comfortable and be able to help other people. Also very excited to have been elected to the YPN board, so I want to get more involved in the real estate community as a young professional, see how we can make a difference. And just, grow in my business, but also be able to help those around me, I would say is my goal.
Well, I think you're already doing that, and I think you don't even realize it. And I will end it. It's your podcast, so I won't end it, but I will end my portion on this. I'm very proud of you. You absolutely crushed this podcast. And
thank you, Dan.
Thank
you for being my first guest and for all the opportunities. So
salute.
Continue watching, and thanks.